a strange way to start a resurrection story, with people hiding behind locked doors, unsure if it's safe to step outside. Welcome back to Peace Evangelical Lutheran Church's podcast. Today, we are reflecting on the timely story of John chapter 20, verses 19 through 31, in which Jesus appears to his disciples after the resurrection. Pastor Travis reflects on how Jesus met his disciples in this uncertain place and how Jesus meets you there too. As always, thank you for listening and for following us online. It really helps.
It's a strange way to start a resurrection story, you know? Not with triumph, not with celebration, but with people hiding behind locked doors, unsure of what comes next, unsure whether it's even safe to step outside. And you know what? It doesn't feel so far from our lives either, right? There are seasons when the world feels uncertain, when grief lingers longer than we expect it to, when fear settles in quietly and stays. And in those moments, we don't always try to leave the room. We close the door. We stay where things feel controlled. We tell ourselves, this is safer. And then Jesus doesn't leave them out. He meets them there. Somehow, that's exactly where the story keeps going. That's where John takes us this morning. Not back to the empty tomb, not out into the world, into a locked room. It's Easter evening. Mary's already told the disciples that she's seen the Lord. But now it's evening, and the disciples are behind locked doors, and they're afraid. Afraid of the authorities who probably believe that they stole Jesus' body and are ready to act on it. Afraid of what might happen next. And maybe, just maybe, afraid of themselves, of what they did and didn't do. And it's there in that space, in the middle of everything they're carrying, in the middle of the whiplash of the last few days, that's when Jesus comes and stands among them. The door's locked. I've always been fairly certain Jesus didn't knock first. How he got in remains a mystery, but what he says, that part is clear. His first words are not an admonishment, not a correction, not even instructions. They're simply, peace be with you. We hear those words every week in this place. We turn and offer them to each other, a handshake, a nod, maybe an elbow bump. We think of it as a greeting. But here in this room, peace is not a greeting. Here, peace is everything. Peace be with you is doing so much work in this moment. It's peace for their fear, peace for their grief, peace for their regret. It's even forgiveness offered before anyone has had the chance to ask for it, before anyone has to explain themselves. This is not peace as sentiment. This is peace as restoration. Grace before the question has even formed. And then Jesus says something just as surprising. As the Father has sent me, so I send you. Think about that. The peace that Jesus gives here is not only comfort, it's calling, it's purpose, it's identity, it's life, moving forward again. And then there's Thomas, who for any number of reasons was not in the room that evening. Thomas has carried the reputation of a doubter for centuries. But here's the thing. John never actually uses the word doubt. Thomas doesn't say, I refuse to believe. What he says is closer to, I want what you had. You saw him. You experienced him. Just like Mary experienced him before she came and told you, I need that too. This isn't really about evidence, friends. This isn't about proving a case. It's about relationship. Thomas is asking not to be left out of the resurrection. And so Jesus comes back. 1 week later, same room, same locked doors, and this time, it's for Thomas. Peace be with you. Because resurrection isn't a one-time event. It's a persistent, patient presence. Jesus keeps showing up until peace reaches everybody in that room. And Thomas, Thomas responds not with skepticism, but with one of the most profound confessions in all of Scripture, "My Lord and my God." But notice what happens next. Just when we think the story is wrapping up, John does something unexpected. He steps out of the story for a moment. Now, Jesus did many other signs in the presence of his disciples, which are not written in this book. In other words, there's more. More than we can tell. More than any gospel can fully capture. And it means this is not a closed story. It's an open one. So the question shifts. Not what happened in that room, but where are the rooms we are sitting in right now? The places shaped by fear, by anxiety, by grief, by uncertainty about what comes next. And what if resurrection doesn't begin with finding a way out? What if it isn't about escaping the room? What if it begins with Jesus meeting us there, speaking peace into that space? Not once, not twice, but again and again, until we are ready to hear it, until we're ready to trust it, until we're ready to live it. Because that peace does not end with us. As the Father has sent me, so I send you. We're sent not as people who already have everything figured out, not as people who have escaped every fear. We are sent as people who have been met, as people who now carry peace into a world that desperately needs it. I'm always drawn to the way John's gospel ends. Maybe it was never meant to be finished. Not entirely. Because every time someone speaks peace into a fearful space, every time someone chooses trust over certainty, every time someone says in their own way, "We have seen the Lord," another line in the story gets written. The story continues. And somehow by grace, we are a part of it too. So if you're wondering where the resurrection is today, it's not just back in that story, in that room, in that week. It's right here, in the rooms we're sitting in the peace we're learning to trust, in the lives we're being sent to live. Because the story isn't finished. And neither, dear friends, are we.
That's this week's episode of Peace Lutheran Sermons podcast. Don't forget to join us next week for another episode. Thank you for listening.